Supernatural Season 11, Episode 8, Just My Imagination. Now, when this episode first started, it seemed like it was going to be a fairly simple episode, and then it really changed. This one really surprised me, to be totally honest, and it surprised me in, I think, the best way possible, because not only did we get flashbacks in this episode, which I do believe this is like the first flashback episode of the season, so that was really cool, but somehow, and I don't think the show's ever done this show actually made me feel a little sad for an imaginary friend because of how things played out between Sully and Sam when Sam was really young. And I love that. It was really cool. I knew things were going to be weird from the start with the murders because it was like somehow someone was killing imaginary friends. So I knew from the start the answer wasn't going to be too simple. And I was glad it wasn't, because it could have still been like an evil Xana, which still would have been interesting even if that was the case. But we find out like imaginary friends actually exist and they're all Xana. And these are the nicest things we've ever seen in the show, because even angels are pricks in this sometimes. So this was just a really cool episode. It was surprisingly really good, and I really loved this one by the end of it. And it does start off pretty silly and funny. Like Sully he's the imaginary Sam's former, I guess, imaginary friend. And it starts off, he's just comic relief and things like that. And maybe a little bit before the halfway mark is when it got a bit serious, because of course he's losing his friends and stuff, so it gets a little bit more serious. But then we get the first flashback and how he was really there to, help Sam, and how lonely Sam was. We get our young Dean again, which I thought was pretty cool, because they could have just not had him. Because really, he's only in like that one scene, so they could have just gone without that, where it's just young Sam on the phone. So it was kind of cool that they actually put the time in to like have a scene where he's in a telephone booth and it's him talking and everything. So that was actually kind of cool. But we get these flashbacks, and then when we get to Weems, who is hilarious to me, like when he first showed up, it was just like with Dean, because it was like we went from a manicorn, as he put it, to a mermaid to Weems, and I'm like, how does this work? Like, we have a unicorn guy, a mermaid, and then a guy with a mullet, and I was just like, what in the world is happening here? So it made sense once Dean asked. I was like, okay, now I understand the whole air guitar thing, which is pretty cool. But it was really funny when I first saw him. I'm like, this doesn't match what I've seen so far, so that was pretty funny. But it was cool. It was a nice episode. I really actually felt bad for Sully during the scene where Sam has the flashback. Like, this is kind of what happened when they separated, and it was because Sam was the kid. He just assumed like, oh, I made up this imaginary friend, so he didn't know that he was actually hurting someone. So it just made it really entertaining to watch. It's like, man, it was something that really affected like this imaginary friend. And for Sam, it was like he went off to do the family business, and they'd had all the discussions about him running away and him going to school and things like that. And it was kind of cool, because it made me think like maybe he was the one that really helped him when he was younger, to say like, hey, I do want to leave this life. And that's how he ended up going to college and everything, ultimately coming back into things. But he at least tried. He tried to have that life, and maybe Sully was kind of a part of that. So it was really cool. And then they have their conversation about it, and he's like, I'm really proud of you for what you did, and even though you didn't, you tried to stay out of the business, but you kind of got back into hunting, at least you're happy. I mean, and that's all you really cared about. So it was actually really fun to watch this. Like, this is actually really good development, even though it's really just recapping stuff that's already happened. So I was like, that's actually very entertaining. So I really love that. The actual ending, when they figured out who was killing off all the Xana, that was pretty good too, because then that was definitely the most dramatic moment for Sully, because it was him during a moment where he messed up, and it's supposed to be they just help kids and everything, and he unfortunately got this girl killed because they were playing tag, and she ran into the street and got killed, and her sister is just left alone because he freaked out and he took off. So she, it made it even worse for her, and I was like, man, this is insanely sad, but it was really good writing. It was actually a really great moment, and it was certainly acted well. So I really loved the ending, and it was good that ultimately they didn't have to kill anybody, but it was just a crazy ending. I was like, man, this was all these little moments kept happening, and it's like it comes to a head, by the end. And like I said, on both sides of the fences, it was acted very well. Like the woman who was killing all the Xana, she acted her scene really well. Like as far as talking about how her sister was killed and all this stuff, I was like, this is great motivation, and it just works really well. And it's like Sully left after getting her sister killed, and that made it even harder for her to deal with things. And of course, she couldn't explain exactly what happened because, of course, Xana are invisible to adults. And I was like, man, this is just really good. Like it went from just a seemingly simple, not even a monster of the week, because by the end it's actually a human doing all the stuff. So it just seems like a normal kind of filler type of episode that's going to be really silly and funny, which it was definitely a funny episode, but I think it was almost like the perfect half and half type of episode. It starts off really silly and funny, and especially the scene with the blood and everything on the mom's face. That was really funny to me, and Dean trying to figure out like how to say like the family that showers together. I love that because that was just like, I don't know where he thought that was gonna go, but that was a nice, really funny scene. And then we get the flashbacks, and then it continues on, and finally we get the actual answer. And I was like, this is actually really, really good. This is really cool. So I certainly love this episode. Yet another sort of one-off episode. They do, kind of touch on the darkness a little bit, and like I think 2 points of the episode is like with Sam and Dean at the very end, and then like right before that, or I guess it was probably like 15 minutes before that when Sully and Sam are actually talking. But it was really cool. It was actually a really good episode. It really surprised me because I was like, I don't think I'm gonna enjoy this episode because I wanted something, because we already had, the last episode was Plush, which technically was kind of just a Monster of the Week type of episode. It was a really cool one, but I wanted them to get back into the main story, and I was like, I think I'm going to enjoy this. It's not just going to be like a Monster of the Week, but I'm also not going to enjoy this a lot, and it really surprised me, so I was really glad by the end. I was like, this is actually a really good episode, and I kind of loved it. So I'm really looking forward to the mid-season finale, though, because they officially had the devil in there in the promo, so I was like, that's gonna be amazing. I was just sitting there smiling when I saw the trailer, so I can't wait to see that next week. It should be pretty insane. I don't know how that's gonna play out. The scenes they show are pretty interesting too, because the way they do it, it's basically once they get to the cage, it seems like it's only Sam and Lucifer, so I don't know exactly what happens with Dean. And there's someone else there, like every time I talk about the cage, it's like, we all want to see the devil, but there's technically 2 other people in there, and I don't know how that's going to play out. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we get for this mid-season finale. I don't know. It seems like there's going to be a lot of Amara doing some really crazy stuff, so I'm looking forward to that. It seems like she's in her adult form based on the trailer, so we're going to get to see the woman that actually talked to Dean in the very first episode of the season. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm assuming we're going to get Rowena back, because if I remember right from the trailer for this season, there's a scene with her with like chains and stuff and everything too. So I don't know exactly what that meant. I kind of figured that had something to do with a spell maybe she'd done to try to help Sam. I don't know why, that was obviously speculations, but I'm assuming we'll get to see Rowena because we haven't seen her in a little while. Obviously Crowley was in it. I'm assuming Cass will be in it, and he was surprisingly missing in this. I thought it was kind of weird that he wasn't, at least in the opening, like, because they were in the bunker, and I was like, it's kind of weird that Cass wasn't in this, at least in the opening. I mean, especially considering they had the flashback scene, and they took the time to have young Dean just in the telephone booth. It was like, it's weird that Cass, who's living with them, wasn't in there, unless he was walking around and trying to get info out of Metatron or something. He would normally be in the bunker, and it was kind of weird that there was not even a mention of Cass, especially with them, being in the bunker. That was like the only weird thing to me about this episode, outside of obviously the imaginary friend stuff. But I was kind of surprised. I was like, it was weird that he wasn't in there, and then I kind of forgot after that opening scene because I was just focused on the episode. But it was kind of weird that I didn't see him in the bunker after. I feel like he would have had some really weird, funny line about all the candy and everything. I feel like that would have been the perfect moment for Cass to, like, just randomly walk in, because we had, like, everyone was in their pajamas, which I also thought was funny, because we have Sam, who's doing, like, every time he's, you know, by himself, he's doing, like, a crazy karate pose in, like, some pajama pants and stuff. And then we have Dean just walking around in a robe. Like, he looked totally different than him in his normal clothing. It was just, like, him in a robe and some slippers. And even the scene when he turned around, he does, like, a crazy little, like, martial arts pose or something. I was like, this is really silly, because they're never just, like, lounging around. We don't ever see that. So it's kind of funny that it was just like him in a robe and some slippers and stuff, and he's just walking around like, what the heck is all of this crap? So I feel like it would have been perfect to see they're like just lounging in pajamas, and then here comes Cass in like full on suit mode, and he's just like, you know, what's with all the candy and stuff. So wish we had that, but obviously not that big of a deal to, like, I don't need to see Cass. It was really weird that he wasn't there though for that, just for the opening, because they're in the bunker. But love this episode. I really cannot wait for this mid-season finale. I can't wait to see how they play around with us for this one, but I'm looking forward to it. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I want to know what you guys thought about the flashbacks that we got in this episode, because they did show... It's nothing new, because like I said, we knew that Sam was a lonely kid. I mean, it's Sam and Dean. And Dean was the one that was kind of okay with being alone. He always had his younger brother, and then even when he was kind of away, which we got, you know, as far as flashbacks, we got that, I believe that was 2 seasons ago, when he was actually at the, kind of the boys' home. And then just in general, even when he was with Sam, I was like, well, at least I got Sam, and then they play games or do whatever. But during those moments, like we saw in this episode, it was really just Sam wishing that he was living, you know, the family business life. And it was very interesting to watch Sully try to help him work through leaving that life behind, because that seemed like that is what he wanted, clearly, because that's what ends up happening in the future. But it was pretty cool watching, as far as I was concerned. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.